Madam Deputy Director General, what a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Thank you for having me.
I understand the latest report from FAO is suggesting there's likely to be the possibility of famine in the Middle East if the conflict continues. Tell us about the latest situation, please.
FAO and a number of other UN partners released what's called the IPC report, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Report. And in there, we recognize that the entire population of Gaza, 2.2 million people, are now suffering from acute food insecurity. What's even more concerning, though, that this report released just recently showed was that half of the population, fully 50% of the population, are in the uppermost level of hunger that we are able to report on. That's level 5. And that means that it is catastrophe and famine-like conditions. So we are very concerned that a few months ago, we would have said famine was likely. The release of this particular report just very clearly shows that famine is imminent. And it's very possible that there could be situations of famine that are already materializing even in the northern provinces, the northern governance in Gaza. It's important to understand that when households and individuals are in this upper level, this upper category 5, that means that there is truly an extreme lack of food. They are unable to meet many of their most basic of needs, and people are starving, and they face increasingly a significant risk of malnutrition, disease, and even death. And so this report is quite shocking. It's unprecedented in terms of both absolute numbers and also the percentage of a population that is this close to famine. We've never seen this before in the 20 years that we have been working on these types of reports in other countries. I personally hope that the release of this report, the statistics, the very clear assessment of just how desperate the people of Gaza are in this particular moment, I hope that it is enough to catalyze or to move the negotiations, the conversations, the discussions that are happening at a political or at a government level to make some actions, to take some actions to allow shipments of food to come in very quickly because it's needed.
When you see people around the world are speaking out, they are gathering in order to support the people in Gaza, especially, the civilians. When you see governments, even at the United Nations General Assembly, trying to make their voices heard to support the people there, does it give you more support and strength? But on the other hand, seem to be very disappointing because eventually it didn't realize, no matter how hard we have been trying to call for it,
following the release of the report, that certain negotiations that are underway seem to be making some progress. I understand that there may be some new resolutions being presented in the UN General Assembly in the coming day or so that maybe has some new openings, maybe has some support from the United States and other governments that have been a bit hesitant in terms of advocating strongly for a humanitarian ceasefire. The other thing that comes alongside all of this is that it is admittedly encouraging to see so many alternative solutions, creative solutions that a variety of governments are trying to discern and to bring together to bring more food supplies into Gaza. You now have airdrops of food that have been put into place by the United States, by Jordan. You have a number of the European countries that are looking at sea channels in order to get food in, not via truck, but in via shipping lanes from the sea. But the way that we are going to, I think, try to turn back the clock on this coming famine, we have to have border crossings open and we have to get the trucks.
The Gaza Strip situation has become one of the very rare cases in which the staff of United Nations or people who have been working with the United Nations in order to deliver humanitarian aid and for some types of peacekeeping in order to separate the two sides have been suffering from heavy casualties. This is very unprecedented in recent decades. How do you take in this reality?
It's so heartbreaking to witness and hear the stories of loss inside our own UN family. We're very fortunate in FAO in that all of our staff, we have 11 staff members who have been a part of our work in Gaza. They have all been relocated. What also is, I think, so saddening to many of us is that even while our own staff members, our colleagues, are indeed safe and secure, the stories we have heard about the losses in their own family networks and their community of friends. We have staff members who in just recent weeks have lost as many as 25 of their own family members. And so you have to understand that even while that individual who works with you and for you as FAO is indeed taken care of and safe, the impact and the implications of what it must mean for them on a personal, on a human level, to have this kind of loss that is affecting them certainly affects all of us.
And that's only one piece of the many stories that's happening all at the same time right there in Gaza. Having said that, though, I'm sure at this moment, as the Deputy Director General of FAO, you know exactly the value of peace for food security and all over the world.
It's a difficult time that the world finds itself in, and it's partly driven because of conflicts like this. And as we look around the world, we know it's not just in Gaza. I mean, we follow and work very closely in Ukraine. We work and follow very closely the situations in Sudan, South Sudan. We have political tensions and significant conflict emerging in a country like Haiti. It's constant appearing that we are in a period of time where conflict is ever present. And layered into that is also the challenges that come from the climate crisis and the trend lines for many of our metrics of trying to eliminate hunger, to bring levels of poverty down, unfortunately are going in the wrong direction. We had been making quite a bit of progress in these areas up until about 2015 or 16. And then this ever-present cycle, it seems, of conflicts that emerge, of variability in weather and climate-oriented patterns, and then the COVID pandemic. We can't forget that that was only a few years ago that all of us were affected by that particular situation, and we're still feeling the economic ramifications, the economic downturns from that. So when you put all of these things together, it's really, I think, probably not so surprising that we are facing a more complicated situation when it comes to global food security. Today, we have 258 million people in the world in 58 countries who are considered acutely food insecure. And when it comes back to that IPC report that I was talking about earlier, this acutely food insecure population are in what we call IPC levels 3, 4, and 5. 3 is crisis, 4 is emergency, and 5 is catastrophe leading to famine, which is the situation we find ourselves in Gaza, for example. And so when you look at the situation, you realize that there is a great amount of work to be done, a great amount of humanitarian support that is required.
Yeah. Beth, so when you are talking about, hunger, famine, and also poverty, reminds me of what the Chinese have went through over the past 100 years, How do you see large economies like China and others from FAO's perspective in participating and also in working together with others in order to bring more potential
I think there are obviously best practices. There are policy models. There is innovation and technology. There is private sector support, whether it's from China or other developed economies in the world, that actually do need to be brought to bear in a number of these other crisis settings in the world. And I think while there certainly are lessons to be taken from that, there also is the need for, I think, models of political leadership. I think there are models of, again, agricultural innovation, but there at the same time is also very importantly the need for continued investment and continued global financial support for these countries that are suffering. I don't want to make it seem that it's only about a financial cash investment that will make some of these challenges become less than. But there is a need for donors around the world who are in a position to provide humanitarian support. Again, whether it's in services, whether it's in data or technology or innovations, but also simply just in terms of financial commitments to really doing all we can. And I think China is certainly one of those very important recognized partners that can, I think, step up and be a very significant leader in how we address a number of these global crises.
Beth, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you.